Oh yeah! Woo! Welcome back.
So aggressive.
Welcome back.
I was not ready for
Welcome
that.
back to Waterbox. Fish heads.
Ivan's dying over there. He's currently
Did I catch you
dying.
off guard?
I thought that was WWF. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? We appreciate you all being here. Being a little silly right out of the gate. It's all good. We're giving away 2 $100 gift cards at the end of the stream. Currency to win that is commenting, asking questions, making friends in the comments, smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and you know, all that stuff.
If you're not active in the chat, we don't know you're there, so make sure to engage. We are going to do questions throughout the stream or towards the end, wherever. So if you got questions, put them in here. It doesn't have to be just about our topic today. Anything Waterbox or aquarium related is totally cool too. So the last few weeks, we've talked about soft corals. We've talked about LPS corals, and of course now moving on to SPS corals. So that's kind of the natural progression of a lot of people, where they end up after they've kind of conquered and done those things. So we're going to talk about that today.
Lots of people end up at SPS. I ended up at SPS.
Yeah, me too.
I went backwards though.
You went backwards.
Yeah, meaning like now I'm back to the easy stuff. I started easy, went to the hard stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm back. I want the bread and butter, easy stuff. But
yeah, and it really depends on what you want yourself involved in. So like when you're thinking about getting to SPS, a few things you want to kind of think about first is how long has your tank been up and running? Like you don't jump into SPS first. That is something that you kind of progress to. You want to be keeping soft corals or LPS for, you know, kind of, and it's just like a guideline is like 6 months. Your aquarium has been established, you've been keeping corals for like 6 months, and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready. The reason for this is because even when things test well and seem stable, there's a lot of microscopic things that happen that really equals maturity in your aquarium, and it does take time for that all to stabilize and kind of grow. So, you know, time frame is important. Now, if you got a lot of experience, not saying you can't start from day one with SPS, but this is kind of a good guideline if you're thinking about getting into it. And then also, you know, you gotta make sure you have everything set up properly because they do require certain extra care for that kind of stuff. So, more light. They are heavier light demanding. So you're gonna need higher intensity light. If you start with kind of basic ones and you are moving on to it and you really wanna get heavy into SPS, upgrade your lights or just make sure that they are enough.
upgrade to metal halides.
Oh man, back in the day, yeah, back when chillers and fans and stuff were needed.
I will say that metal halides worked really well.
Yeah. No,
Not cost effective
undeniably
at all in any means. Like you had to have a chiller.
Yeah.
Your power bill was $500 more every month.
No, that's for sure.
But they grew corals really well. What's up?
I just realized we should have saved the topic for today to how to prepare for a hurricane.
Yeah,
Because people
yeah.
are asking that like crazy.
Yeah. So
Like, how do you prepare? What am I supposed to do?
yeah. So Keenan's. There you go. How do you prepare an aquarium for a hurricane? This is a great. We're gonna go off topic for just a second.
Yeah. So
because we are in Florida.
The whole southeast of the United States right now is going to have, I mean, starting pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like when we leave here, there's going to be getting ugly from then on out. Is in a huge tropical storm or hurricane warnings with this Hurricane Helene.
Yep.
I think that's how you say it? Yeah. Coming in at like a Cat 4 up on Florida. So serious business. Unfortunately, we are inland. So we're central Florida. So we are usually going to be better off than a lot of the coast is. But we do still get power outages. And I mean, some of the last hurricanes were out of power for up to a week. But it's not as bad as for that. Preparing. If you're in a really bad spot, you had to take yourself and what's the most important and go. Like, you know, aquariums are great and stuff like that. But if you're in a really high risk area,
especially where there's storm surge.
Yeah, trying to figure out lugging, you know, livestock and water and bubblers and stuff is going to be tough. However, if you are in anywhere that's going to have tropical storms, regular heavy storms, or hurricane, battery operated air pumps are your best friend. So these are going to allow some oxygen to stay in your aquarium.
So basically,
when your power
keeping
goes
the
out.
oxygen in the water is the biggest thing.
It's not. It's great in theory,
Yeah.
but whenever you are in Florida or a southern state, right now it's fall, but Florida is dead hot summer still. You know, when our temperatures are 90 plus degrees every day, our heat index is 100 plus, you lose power. Oxygen doesn't matter when your tank's going to get super hot. Now, if you can be prepared, freezing water bottles so that they're ice can help, but it's still short term. I think aquariums are probably one of the hardest animal creatures to have when you're dealing with power outages. Most animals, your dogs, your cats, lizards, stuff like that, they can survive. Aquariums are going to be the hardest part.
So heat's a big deal.
Heat is a big deal, yeah. Generators, with the amount of money as you invest into an aquarium, a generator is your number one thing you can do. Make sure it's enough to run like your fridge or maybe some room ACs and your bare necessity stuff for your aquarium.
You know, that's really true when you think about the cost of a generator, right?
$1,000, $2,000. Depending on a whole house,
or a
might
whole
be
house,
more.
it might be $6,000-$10,000, but some of these aquariums might be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 invested in them.
Yeah.
So what's...
And in Florida, I think in general, that's a more common thing, or having a generator handy. But in looking at a storm like this, we're like, Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas are all hugely going to be affected by this too. Like they're not usually ever kind of prepared for that kind of thing. So, having all those extra things that you may never use on hand is still better than possibly not having them.
We've been fortunate here. I'm not to go. We're going off topic for a while, but
It's an important topic.
Yeah.
yeah, it's an important topic because there's millions and millions of people that are being affected by this. I don't know how
This
many
one's,
hobbyists,
major.
but we've been fortunate here that we haven't lost power for a very long time with all of our aquariums. We do have a backup generator though, in case we do.
Yeah, so we do have a generator here, and if it does come down to that, someone comes and lives at the office part-time and runs that generator. Actually, during our last hurricane, that generator ended up coming to my house because I ended up with power outage longer than like anyone on the office. I think we're almost like 5 days at my house for the last one to try and help with some AC and my axolotls and stuff.
Fun fact, my neighborhood, my street that I live on has not lost power in a hurricane in 50 years.
You better go knock on some wood. Because you just did it. You just did it. Your neighborhood is coming after you because it's happening now.
It's not that it can't happen. It certainly can, but our power's underground. So it has to be like one of the connecting areas that get hit by a tree. And as far as I know, those don't have any trees nearby.
Gotcha. So anyone on the topic, be as prepared as you can. If you still have time and you're in the area, freeze some water bottles. Go find a generator if you can. I mean, it's going to be hard in a lot of these areas. And our thoughts go out to everyone in the path because this one's going to be very major. So.
Did you say freeze some water bottles?
Yeah.
What for?
Put it in the water?
Because then you can sit in the water and it helps cool it as it gets hot.
Another thing I was thinking about, I don't know if, I'm sure people have done this, but they have like lithium batteries for like vehicles or boats or whatever, or even just regular batteries. I'm sure you could somehow hook that up too, right? Like people have done that.
I don't know.
A 12-volt battery you could. Like
Yeah, that's what I mean. Where you hook it up and then I think there's like an inverter or something and then you can plug in regular stuff.
Or if you have an electric car, just plug it in.
There you go. All right. Jump back to SPS?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yep. So lighting, and then the stability factor, which is another reason why we kind of say 6 months or so, is you want your testing and your dosing to be on point. Like it's predictable what your aquarium's doing. Your dosing is meeting its needs. You don't have big fluctuations. The number one thing with SPS is consistency. Water quality, lighting, parameters, everything. Swings in those kind of stuff does not do well. You're going to lose color, you're going to lose tissue, like they're going to do poorly and they're going to show it pretty quickly. So that's another part of the reason of that 6 months is like by then you've been dosing, you've been testing, you've got it under rhythm, your water changes are on a good schedule. Generally you do want to have better water quality as far as nitrates and phosphates than if you're just running softies or LPS. So, you know, that's making sure those are in check before you start jumping into
Let me
SPS.
back up a sec.
Yeah.
You mentioned 6 months, meaning letting the tank mature. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, 6 months
Okay.
having corals in there, the tank has been maturing, really stabilizing all the microfauna and the microorganisms, everything that happens in your system. Because with an aquarium and a reef aquarium, it's an underwater ecosystem is really your goal. Because you need all that microfauna, you need that natural stuff in there to really have a stabilized setup.
Perfect.
And that's the main things. I think SPS, you know, and it depends on what type you get into. There's some that are going to handle a lot more, you know, swings or not as good of stability if you get started and you're kind of on a learning curve. And then there's ones that are going to be much harder to keep. One thing goes off, it turns brown or loses tissue. So we're going to focus on where do you start with SPS? Like, what are your most resilient ones? They're going to grow faster. They're going to give you that kind of gratification. They're going to show you that, you know, you're meeting their needs and actually grow, because some will grow a lot faster than other ones will. And you don't want to start with the most difficult, of course. Start with the easier and then move on from there. So we're going to talk about what I consider like 4 of the best starter SPS.
Perfect.
Coolio. Going into that, or you have questions?
I mean, I have questions if you want some, but you can keep going.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
All right, the first one, and this is one of my favorite SPS corals, is bird's nest corals. I love these guys because they grow like this super intricate, connected branches, and some of them have like these nice rounded tips, and some will have a more pointy appearance, but they grow this dense and they get big, hence call them bird's nest.
They tend to grow in like a round.
Yeah, very round,
Yeah.
very compact with the branches, and they're going to grow relatively fast for a hard coral. They, you know, come in a variety of colors. You've got kind of like pink and hues and purple hues. You've got green. You got some that have like orangey tips, and they also have some pretty good sized polyps. So here's like a really pointy one, which looks like super cool. Put that next
like
to like a
pink bird's
rounded
nest.
one, yeah. And you know, they're going to give you a really nice looking colony as they grow. And the only downside I say is because they do get big and they grow so dense together, is you need to have really good flow where they grow as they get bigger, is because the inner branches, if you're not getting enough flow to them, they're gonna die off. So you're gonna have like kind of this like dead zone in the middle, which takes away from the whole like pretty look of the whole colony. So really good flow for those guys. I mean, they're like moderate to higher lighting, but they're very forgiving as far as light requirements and, you know, the stability of stuff. It still needs to be
Fun
good, but-
fact.
Yeah.
I've had some successful SPS tanks. Could never keep bird's nests.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Do you think maybe it was flow? But the other SPS flourished, so that's what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
me.
all SPS need good flow. It's just like the denser they grow, the more they need it. But it wouldn't be a problem, I think, until you had like a bigger colony.
Yeah, I don't know.
So frag-wise, I wouldn't see that
Yeah.
as kind of a deal. So,
They weren't frags. They were like mini, like ORA size.
yeah.
But
Well, no.
yeah, that was one of those corals I could never keep. Always wanted to.
But I also think that you ask anyone who's been in this hobby for any amount of time, is there always going to be that type of coral or a couple types of corals that
Their tank just
their
doesn't.
tank doesn't do it?
Yeah.
They could never pinpoint why. It could be even one of the easiest corals or one of the hardest, and they're just like, this coral does not do it. Like, never does well for me. Why? I don't know. But I guarantee everyone has like 1 or 2 of those types of corals that they could say. All right.
We'll throw some questions and comments in here.
I didn't change the word.
Consistency is key with SPS. Yes, it is.
100%, yes. I think it's more important than the actual levels.
How often should I clean or change my filter sponge just before the return pump in the sump of my Marine X110.4?
So for that one there, like every water change or 2, just take it and clean it out in like the water that you are pulling from the aquarium. And it's not that it necessarily harbors so much bacteria, like good beneficial bacteria that's gonna like spike your tank or anything if you wash it under tap, but it's just a good practice. Any sponges and biological, anything that could contain it, is to rinse it in tank water, to make sure you don't kill off that bacteria. So every water changer too is plenty. It just catches some debris and dirt. It's more to break up microbubbles and also make sure anything in your sump, if like larger pieces, doesn't make it into your return pump, which could then kill your return pump. You'll see in a lot of our newer models, it's a more open white type of sponge, and it used to be a much denser like black sponge, but just to allow more water flow and less clogging chances, but it's kind of just there as a safety from bigger pieces of anything making it into your pump.
I see that the only reason to not, I'm blind. Can you read
Use
that?
full spectrum lighting. All right, he made it bigger for you.
Spectrum lighting. I'm not that blind. Fine, is spectrum lighting is because it looks bad in the salt water. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, you could run a full white light with all the spectrums and stuff like that on salt water, but the blue is put in there on all the most saltwater lights is because your coral is going to look brown. So it's not going to be very pretty, but the blue spectrum is not technically really needed. And they do say in theory that blue does help color up corals like long term. But if you've ever seen like videos of the ocean and the reefs,
I was gonna say, go Google the picture of a coral reef.
So ugly to look at. I mean, it's tans and browns and yellows. That's because there's none of the blue spectrum in the sun. So yes, you can use just all white type spectrums, but your aquarium's not going to look that. You're going to buy this beautiful like red coral or something and spend $50 or however much, and you're going to put it in there, and it's going to be brown or tan or something like that.
Yep. Should I keep fish feeding to 0 during an outage?
Yeah, if you don't have filtration running and you don't have necessarily oxygen sources and stuff, food is not important. Fish can go quite a while without any food and not be harmful to them whatsoever. So unless you're talking long-term outages, but at that point you got more issues with oxygen and temperature and stuff like that than food. So don't add extra waste into your aquarium during this time.
I want to know who is in the southeast dealing with this hurricane tomorrow and today and tomorrow.
Yeah,
post in the comments if you're dealing with this,
and
you guys are preparing. I'd love to know if you guys are dealing with that, and I hope that the tips we gave earlier are helpful for that.
There's a bunch of people mentioning that they are.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you guys well. Hopefully everyone stays safe and your aquariums stay healthy. What's the biggest water box aquarium y'all make? I'm looking for a 96 by 48 by 30.
That's a big one. You'd have to come over to the custom division. So you can go on the website and put in a submission form on there to get a custom quote. But our biggest one is not nearly that big.
It's a 96 by 30 by 25?
Yeah.
Or is it by 25 by 30 linked with, yeah.
It's 30, yeah.
Yeah,
25.
30 by 25.
Yeah.
So if you want to go that 48 depth, custom.
Go custom. That's going to be a heavy, expensive tank.
Yeah,
But it'll be beautiful.
But we've done them.
Yeah.
And they look just as beautiful as all the other water boxes. So hit up waterboxaquariums.com. You can get a quote.
Yep. All right, so next when we're talking about like easier to keep SPS is going to be Digitata. This is one I think you don't see nearly as much in aquariums.
It's one of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah. As you can see here, they come in a lot of varieties, colors. I feel like you can't find them as easily anymore, but these are fun because they grow very kind of branchy, like little fingers. You've got reds, greens, purples, blues. You got multicolors, like this one here has different flesh color at the tips.
Love that coral.
But they have a really unique growth structure. They're going to grow a little bit taller and kind of just wild with their different stretched branches.
I've also seen ones that like group really tightly when they're like high flow.
Yeah, I mean lighting and flow and stuff like that will determine some of their growth structure. Like right here you can see 4 different colors. Well, it's 3 because the one off to the side is a montipora. Never mind. But you see red, green, and blue here of all Digitatas. And I just think their structure is really unique.
I might be out of touch. I definitely am. But I don't see Digis anywhere. Like when I'm walking through stores, I'm like, where are they? Where are these corals that were so iconic back in the day?
Yeah, the basic ones that used to be like so common back in the day before, there was so much aquaculture and collector corals and stuff like that, like green slimers and, you know, Digis and just these basic
people just don't want them?
corals. Well, I don't think it's a high dollar enough item that most fish stores are like designating aquaculture space to. So the one digi we show that has like the green flesh on the tips, that's like a Wildfire or Superman digi or something like that. Like you'll find something like that because it's got a name, it's got a little bit different like color structure, and it's gonna get a little bit more money compared to like a basic Digitata. So I feel like a lot of this is more probably intertraded between people or in groups and forums and stuff versus seeing it like massively produced by a lot of fish stores. Sadly, because I think
Fish stores, get those corals, man.
get the
Come
digis
on.
and the slimers.
Yeah, get them star polyps. What's wrong with you?
I'm not talking about star polyps.
Well, we should.
I think most stores say no on star polyps. We have star polyps taken up over our frag rack over in
I
here.
love it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's great. Great.
Don't hate on star polyps.
I'm not. All right, we're going to the next one. Keenan? I never know if you're going to throw
A
questions
lot of
up
my
or
favorite
going.
corals in this.
I know.
No, we can keep it going. We'll save some questions for the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next one here, and this is kind of broken up in two groups we're going to go over, and montipora. The first one is plating montipora, and this is one that it's better for a larger aquarium because it's going to take some space. Cool thing about these is you can different colorations. Standard usually you're going to see is like red and green. There is like a purple variety. There's some with different polyp colors and like different rim colors. And graphs, yeah. So these shelf out. They are like the iconic looking one. Or you see a large mature aquarium with them that has like 40 layers of this growing up and spiraling together. It's really, really awesome. Not the best to put into a small aquarium because it's going to shade out and grow a little bit large. But you see here, like this is green with like
Easy,
a blue
fast
rim.
growing.
Yeah, I know.
I have a story about montipora too.
Oh, okay.
But do you want me to go now?
Yeah, let's do
All right.
it.
The very first coral, no, not the very first. The very first SPS coral I ever bought was an orange cap from Ocean Blue in Central, here over in the time Winter Park. I grew that into a big colony, you know. It spiraled.
Yeah.
Sprouted up. I grew it into a big colony. Broke that tank down. I'll speed this up. I had
It's like 20 years ago.
I think I kept that coral for almost a decade and grew it into probably like 5 or 6 big colonies. From that little frag that I bought from Ocean Blue back in the day,
Yep.
I grew it again and again and again and again over time in all different tanks.
They're great growers, and I mean, when you really let one actually have the space to grow, because it like makes its base and it spirals up into another layer. Like it's so pretty to actually see this like like huge piece actually mature. Like they're really, really cool.
I used to joke with that specific montipora that I could keep it in like a a tide pool.
They're very forgiving. Very, very
Because it had been
forgiving.
in so many aquariums with all these different fluctuations and it still survived. It was like just used to it.
So the one we were on that has the green and the red on it. Go to the next one, Ivan. Yeah. So this is what you were talking about with the grafted. So even the most common corals make their way into the expensive collector way, because that's just how this hobby works. So here you see is a grafted. So this is what they've actually taken a red into green and actually had them graft together, and over time their tissue blends and makes a really cool pattern one. So there's a lot of grafted ones out there, and these are the most common you're going to see because they fetch the most money. But give me a standard green and a red to grow, look absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And the purples and they're really pretty.
Yeah. So if you have a larger aquarium, you're thinking about getting the SPS, designate a section that you can give like a really cool plating montipora to. And as it grows and matures, you're going to really appreciate it as the centerpiece in there.
Yep.
All right, and on within montipora is encrusting montipora. This is one of my favorites for montipora. I like this because you get a rainbow of colors. There's so many varieties with these, and I'd say they're going to be a little bit more finicky than the plating montipora as far as like conditions and keeping their vibrant color. But these ones are going to grow all along the rock, so they're not going to plate themselves. They're going to encrust on your rock. But as you can see with some of these rainbow montiporas, and there's a lot of varieties, is you get every color in them. And it's really cool because most of them, like the polyp color changes as it grows, and like the rim color. as that grows, and you kind of just imagine this in like a big piece covering a rock in your aquarium, is just so beautiful. So, you know, these here, definitely a lot of variety and kind of color combinations with these. You can pretty much find anything with these. And it's just so pretty.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. But I guess the downside would be that it's taking rock space, so it's encrusting. So to get like this big rainbow montipora in your aquarium, you're going to have to designate this huge chunk of rock that nothing else can grow on. But I think the rainbow color you get is worth it to give it some space in there.
I want to mention real quick, guys, we are giving away $200 gift cards into the stream. The currency is chatting with us in the comments, asking questions, so on and so forth. And smashing that. If you guys are finding value in this video, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Smashing the like button is mandatory. Okay?
It is. Can't prove
I'm
it,
just
but
kidding.
it is.
But we do appreciate it if you do. So
All right, got some questions?
Yes.
I think there's some people in here that want to win some monies.
Yeah.
What causes SPS to turn more of a red or brown color?
So change in color can be a whole lot of things. So it can be lighting. I mean, that's the thing is like, okay, you go to your store and you get a coral and it's bright red and it's beautiful red SPS and they have a completely different light than you. You go and bring it into your aquarium. That difference in light will shift the color of your coral. Kind of instantly just from visual, but over time as well because of spectrum. Secondly is going to be water quality. What your parameters are will be different. So there can be a shift in color there, just depending on how extreme it is. And then also like trace elements and stuff. You know, my water quality is great. I haven't done a water change forever. There's so much micro and macronutrients and stuff like and minerals and stuff that come in with a good quality reef salt that you don't replenish with just like a general additive. So, you know, all those little tiny minute elements in the water can play a role in it too. But I think your lighting and water quality are going to be like your number one giveaways right away for shifting color.
I found a mantis shrimp about 1 inch in length in my rocks. What do you recommend to catch it? There's a few traps on the market.
There are some traps on the market. You
Never
also have to
used one.
consider, I mean, it's hit or miss on if the shrimp's going to want to go into it or not. But so usually this happens if you brought in like Tampa Bay rock or Gulf rock or whatever it was, this natural rock that's kind of covered in stuff from the ocean, is you get a lot of hitchhikers. And a lot of times if it comes from Florida, it's got a little tiny mantis shrimp in here. They're not going to get as big as the ones like you see that are a problem, like those guys. They generally are smaller. They're not usually going to be a risk. But if you can pinpoint where his like a little hidey area is, you can try and remove that rock to remove it. You can try one of the traps, but you know, those smaller ones, because they're so small, they're pretty hard to get.
Yeah. Encrusting Monty wrecked most of my other SPS. Plating is the only way I will go now.
I mean, anything that grows can overgrow something else. So, you know, encrusting Monty, if you're having a problem with it taking over too much space, you can, similar kind of effect that we've talked about with like soft corals that'll take over, is like make a little circumference area that you want
Like
it to
an
go
island or something?
with, or on an island, or if it's on your main rocks, like take little rubble rocks or frag plugs or something. So as it grows, you can take those out and then kind of prune, you know, and keep them in shape as you would. But anything that grows on a rock surface only can be a problem.
You got to read this one.
You know, I don't have great vision either. I don't have my contacts.
Are there any SPS that can be added after an initial size? 1 month cycle or 6 months, really the baseline?
I mean, I think it really depends on your previous experience. Now, if you have your first aquarium and your first aquarium is 1 month old, I would not suggest it. Now, if you've been doing it for a long period of time, you have multiple aquariums, you just have been doing this long enough to know, you can start with SPS. You're still not going to be as successful. You're not going to have as much growth. You're not going to have as much color, even during those first couple months, even if you really know what you're doing, because your aquarium is not established. It's not mature. And that is a big point, that like you can't pinpoint a maturity thing like this exactly means it's mature. It kind of depends on your system and stuff, but it goes a long way in the health and balance of your aquarium that you can't really test for. So can you do it? Yes. We have the best results, not as much. If you've been doing this for 10 plus years, you got it on your belt, you're gonna have a little bit easier time going right into it, but still not the best way.
Renex 110.4 or Peninsula 4820? I go 110, most popular.
Yeah. Peninsula only fits in so many ways, and then you have to be very strategic in aquascaping. And now if you do it and you have the right corals, Peninsula is so cool. You get to walk around from 3 sides. You technically have more visible space for corals, but it's a smaller percentage of people that can place it and use it fully as a Peninsula.
Yeah, for those dimensions, 110, in my opinion.
That's true with the 20Y.
Yeah. Are there any SPS you should avoid in smaller tanks?
Yeah, I would say mostly the montiporas. I'd say both plating and encrusting, because you're very limited on real estate in a smaller aquarium, where bird's nest and Passipora and millipora and acros and stuff in general, they're going to grow more of their own structure and kind of occupy their space. So that's a little bit easier to plan your placement and control than it is something that encrusts or plates out.
Would you recommend ceramic filter media in my sump, setting up my new 110.4?
I don't think there's any downside to adding biomedia. If it's the bricks or bottles or whatever it is, more biological bacteria is never a bad thing. You're, in a general rule, if you're using a decent amount of live rock, you have enough naturally between your live rock and your sand over time. But you could put in the 110.4, you could put the capacity of blocks of like 5,000 gallons worth in your sump. And that's all cool and well, but it's only going to mature enough and hold enough that your aquarium needs, because your biological bacteria will only grow to the amount of waste product that it has. So you can't put in this and be like, oh, I have enough bacteria for all this. Your bacteria is only enough for what your aquarium needs. It doesn't overpopulate because it can't survive.
What are the best corals for a complete newbie to start with?
Check
Star
out
polyps.
Check out 2 episodes ago. We talked about the best beginner corals.
Yeah, there you go. 2 episodes ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yep, best beginner soft corals to get you going that are really nice and colorful. Check out that, and then the next one goes LPS. So we're kind of guiding you through, picking and choosing your best starter ones. And I guess SPS kind of ends that. So.
Who wants to win some monies?
Woo, yeah. All right, ready? Got some winners?
We're going to do a manual drum roll today.
Manual, okay.
Right.
Manual drum roll.
One-handed for me. Anthony Coram and DZ Rowe.
Woo!
Congratulations, you guys. Email winners at waterboxaquariums.com. Let them know if you are in US or Canada, and they'll get you hooked up in like 9.5 minutes.
You remember the US and Canada part.
I did.
Yes, thank you.
Did.
Yeah, I'll send
it only
those
took
to you.
49 episodes.
It did. It did actually take that many. I've counted. No kidding. So I'll try and get those over to you in the morning, just depending on what power and things decide to do with a hurricane. So no guarantees tomorrow.
Yes, I will note, I don't think we said this, Waterbox will not be in office tomorrow because we have a hurricane coming through. So our phones may or may not be operable, but they will be answering email tickets.
Yeah, we'll be online and doing as much as we can
Live
from
chat,
our respective
tickets.
homes,
Yeah.
depending on power and internet
Yeah.
abilities in the Central Florida area. So
Yes.
we are back here, of course, next week. Next week is Q&A. So that's a popular one. So actually, I don't think we ever designated and set it to it. Is we decided that every first Wednesday of each month is a Q&A segment, because we can never get through enough questions in a regular one when we're covering other topics.
We also compound that in the Q&A, and there's so many questions we can't get to all of them.
I know.
But
I mean, we'll spend 45 minutes on the Q&A one and not get to any of them. So definitely tune in for that, because that's your best time to get your question answered.
yeah, if you guys are in the path of this hurricane, I wish you well. Stay safe.
Yep.
And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And to learn more about Waterbox, visit waterboxaquariums.com.
We're live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.